As you settle in and prepare for rest, you are about to step into a journey unlike any other, not across oceans or continents, but into the heart of a wisdom that has steadied human beings for thousands of years. The old philosophers taught that the restless and uncertain mind can find peace when it begins to see life not as chaos, but as a tapestry of meaning woven by causes, choices, and character. This is not just an idea to be studied, it is an experience to be felt. As your breathing slows and your body softens into stillness, allow yourself to be carried into a space where every moment, even the painful ones, reveals its hidden purpose. Think of how many nights you've laid awake, replaying old mistakes, questioning why life has unfolded the way it has. Sometimes the silence of the night is not comforting. It becomes loud, filled with thoughts that refuse to rest. What if those moments were not wasted? What if even your long hours of overthinking, the endless what-ifs, the silent worries that seem to steal your peace, were themselves seeds in the soil of your journey? In this philosophy, nothing arises without a cause. Every thought, every choice, every action is part of an interconnected pattern shaping who you are and who you are becoming. Tonight, you are invited to rest not in uncertainty, but in trust that there is meaning, even when you cannot yet see it. The ancient thinkers described existence as a chain of causes and effects, each link bound to another in an unbroken flow. To see this clearly is to release the illusion of randomness. Your joy did not appear by accident, nor did your suffering. Both arrived because of causes, both shaping you in ways that only time reveals. And so, instead of asking, "Why me?" you are invited tonight to breathe into a new question. What is this training me for? If these reflections speak to something real in you, something grounded in truth, philosophy, and inner growth, consider subscribing. It's a small gesture, but it helps us reach more minds like yours, and it quietly signals that you are walking this path with intention. Have you ever noticed how suffering often arrives like an uninvited guest? Sudden, heavy, disruptive. A relationship ending without warning. A dream collapsing just as you reached for it. A loved one's absence cuts deeper than you thought you could endure. These questions can weigh on the heart. Why do decent people suffer, while those who act carelessly seem to prosper? The old philosophers did not ignore these questions. They leaned into them, teaching that the answers are not found in despair, but in understanding. They saw that all things, every joy, every pain, every change, arise from causes and conditions. Nothing is random, nothing is wasted, nothing happens without leaving an imprint. Breathe slowly now, and imagine yourself waking at dawn in a quiet stone courtyard high on a hillside overlooking an ancient city. The air is crisp, touched with pine and distant smoke. Mist moves through the valleys like a living breath, and the earth beneath your feet feels cool, grounding you. An old teacher sits before you, his presence calm yet strong, as if he has carried both storms and sunlight within his heart. His cloak is simple, his posture unshaken. He does not offer you easy comfort. Instead, he offers a question, spoken slowly as though it carries the weight of centuries. What if I told you that nothing in your life has ever been meaningless? The mistakes, the heartbreaks, the losses, they are not punishments, they are not accidents, they are seeds, seeds planted in the soil of your life, waiting to grow into wisdom. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take years buried beneath the surface before the season comes. But nothing has been wasted. You are reminded that we are shaped by how we meet what happens to us. When you pause to look back, you may notice how even the hardest moments in your past shaped your present. A failure that forced you to change direction, a loss that deepened your compassion, a disappointment that created space for something new. At the time, they seemed unbearable, almost unfair. Yet looking closely, you see how each moment was part of a pattern you could not yet recognize. Think of a river flowing down a mountainside. The water never looks the same, never rests in one place, and yet it always moves in harmony with gravity, earth, and time. Your life, too, is like that river. Some days it rushes forward with unstoppable energy. Other days it trickles, almost disappearing between stones. But every bend, every rock, every current has its reason. The Stoics spoke of a universe bound together by cause and effect, by a rational order they called nature or logos. Nothing stands completely alone. Every experience is shaped by countless conditions, just as every drop of water is shaped by the riverbed beneath it. The teacher before you lifts his gaze toward the horizon, where the first rays of sun spread gold across the mist. He reminds you that consequences are not a system of punishment or reward, as they are often misunderstood. They are simply the natural unfolding of cause and effect. Drop a pebble into still water and ripples spread outward. Sometimes they reach the shore quickly, sometimes they travel far before returning. Your actions too send ripples into the world. Some consequences appear instantly, while others take years to unfold. But nothing disappears. Nothing is ever without effect. Perhaps this is why life feels so mysterious. We see only fragments of the web of causes. We feel pain without always knowing its root. We experience joy without always understanding what brought it. The teacher's voice softens as he says, "Your task is not to control all the ripples, but to choose the stones you drop." These words free you from fear. If you helped shape your present through past choices, you can also shape a new future through the choices you make today. You realize that this truth is not a burden, but an invitation. You are not helpless in the face of life. You are a partner in it. The morning light deepens, spilling into the courtyard, and suddenly you feel the weight of your own story. The rejections, the betrayals, the moments when life seemed cruel, they return to mind. But instead of cutting into you as before, they appear as teachers. Like stones smoothed by the river's current, your rough edges have been shaped by time and friction. You remember the words of Marcus Aurelius, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Even the obstacles have been guiding you forward. Now, imagine the teacher serving you a simple meal, just bread, olives, and water. At first it feels ordinary, almost too plain. But when he invites you to look deeper, you begin to notice the hidden story in each bite. The sun that nourished the grain, the rain that fell from clouds thousands of miles away, the farmer's hands that tended the field, the countless unseen people who played a part in bringing this food to your plate. Suddenly, what felt simple becomes extraordinary. This is attention, seeing that everything, even the smallest detail, is the result of countless causes. If you could see the significance of a single moment clearly, your whole life would change. And here, in this humble meal, you begin to sense that. Nothing is ordinary. Every detail carries meaning. Every moment is connected to the next in an unbroken thread of causes and conditions. As the day stretches on in the courtyard, you realize something profound. All your life you have been searching for answers in the wrong place. You thought the question was, why me? But the real question is, what is this shaping in me? With that shift, even suffering begins to feel lighter. It is no longer a punishment to endure, but a lesson to receive. The teacher rises, his steps slow and steady across the stone floor. His eyes rest on you with quiet compassion, and his words linger in your heart. Everything happens through cause and effect. Not because the universe wishes to punish or reward you, but because life is a web of events, each moment shaping the next. Trust this, and you will no longer see yourself as a victim of chance, but as a participant in the great unfolding of life. The teacher's words linger in your heart like an echo in the mountains. Everything happens through cause and effect. Yet as you sit quietly in the courtyard, you can feel your own doubt rising. You remember moments when life felt unbearably unfair, times when you gave kindness and received silence in return, times when you tried your best only to fail, times when you loved deeply only to be left behind. Your eyes fall to the ground, to the cracks in the stone pathway beneath you, and you whisper to yourself, "But why does it hurt so much? If everything has meaning, why is the lesson wrapped in so much pain?" The teacher seems to hear the unspoken question in your silence. He walks slowly toward a nearby pool. Its surface is perfectly still, reflecting the blue of the sky. From his cloak he lifts a small stone and lets it fall into the water. Ripples spread outward in widening circles, soft and steady. "Cause and effect works the same way," he says. Some ripples are seen quickly, others take time. Some reach the shore within moments, others travel across seasons or across lifetimes of habit and character. But nothing is lost. No action disappears. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. You watch the circles fade into stillness again, and in that fading, you understand something you had long missed. Suffering is not a sentence passed down from above, nor is joy a random reward. They are simply the unfolding of seeds planted long ago by you, by others, by circumstances beyond any single person's control. The teacher continues, his voice almost like the breeze through the trees. "Do not mistake delay for absence. Just because you do not see the fruit yet does not mean the seed will not grow. Every word, every thought, every action plants something. The only question is what kind of garden you are tending." These words remind you that small choices matter. Tiny acts of bitterness, repeated often, harden the heart. Tiny acts of kindness, repeated often, reshape it. Drops of water will eventually fill a jar, so too will daily habits, good or bad, fill a life. As you rise and walk with the teacher through the garden, you notice how carefully each tree has been shaped. A gardener tends to a small, ancient tree that has been growing for decades, trimming, guiding, shaping with patience. The teacher places a pair of shears in your hand and points to a branch. "Cut here," he says softly. Your hand hesitates. The tree is so delicate, so carefully shaped. What if you make a mistake? What if you ruin what has taken years to grow? Yet slowly, with trembling fingers, you cut the branch. The teacher nods, smiling. Even hesitation has its lesson. Even fear has its purpose. Mistakes are not wasted. They shape you, just as much as your successes do. You realize then that your entire life has been like this tree, shaped not only by your triumphs, but also by your mistakes, by your delays, by your fears. Each one has left a mark, carving something deeper into your character, and suddenly you see nothing has been wasted. Have you ever noticed how the most difficult experiences carve the deepest wisdom into your heart? The heartbreak that once felt unbearable, but later taught you to love with greater depth. The failure that felt humiliating, but became the very force that redirected your life. The disappointment that seemed cruel, but quietly saved you from greater harm. One Stoic thinker wrote that what stands in the way becomes the way. In that spirit, you begin to understand suffering is not here to break you, it is here to shape you. Think of a stone resting in a river. At first it was sharp, jagged, rough, but the current flows over it day after day, year after year, until slowly the stone becomes smooth, polished, not because the river was gentle, but because it was constant. Suffering works in the same way. It wears away illusions, pride, and fear. What feels like erosion is often refinement. What feels like damage may actually be the process of revealing something truer, something more resilient within you. The sun begins to set in the courtyard, casting long, golden light across the stones. Lamps are lit. their glow soft against the deepening sky. Students walk quietly, their steps unhurried, their cloaks whispering against the floor. In this atmosphere, you realize something you have long forgotten. Stillness itself can heal. You sit with them in the hall, and the air becomes heavy with silence. Only your breathing remains, steady, rhythmic, alive. Thoughts rise and fall like clouds drifting across the sky. And you remember the teacher's words. Your thoughts are not who you are. They are the weather passing through the sky of your mind. As the silence deepens, you begin to notice the space between your thoughts. For the first time in a long time, you feel that suffering is not endless. It has shape, it has rhythm, it comes and it goes, like everything else. The teacher beside you whispers, "Peace does not come from controlling the world, it comes from understanding it." And in that moment, you realize the truth. Freedom does not mean escaping difficulty. Freedom does not mean life will finally go your way. Freedom is found in how you meet each moment. It is the steadiness of mind that neither clings tightly to joy nor collapses under pain. It is the balance that allows you to stand steady even when storms arrive. The philosophers called this balance living in accordance with nature, neither drowning in indulgence nor collapsing in denial, but walking the path of understanding. The night has fully arrived. Lamps sway softly in the breeze, their light flickering against the old stone walls. The silence is deep, yet it does not feel empty. It feels alive, as if the air itself is breathing with you. You sit quietly, your body settled, your mind softer than before, and you notice something you had overlooked all along. Peace is not something to be found tomorrow. It is already here, hidden in the present, waiting for you to notice. The teacher beside you leans closer, his voice gentle. Do you see how the flame dances in the lamp? It never stays the same. Each flicker is new, and yet the light continues. Life is the same. Every moment rises and falls, yet something essential remains. You suddenly understand why clinging hurts so much. It is not that joy leaves too quickly, or that pain lingers too long. It is that you resist their nature. You want joy to stay forever. You want pain to vanish instantly. But both are guests, arriving and leaving when conditions allow. You picture a bird gliding through a wide valley. The winds shift beneath its wings, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy. But the bird does not curse the storm or demand the skies remain still. It trusts the currents, letting each one carry it further on its path. What would it mean for you to live that way, not fighting against what comes, but trusting that even the storm has something to teach? Later, as the night deepens, you follow the teacher to a quiet pool at the edge of the grounds. The water is still, dark as ink, reflecting the stars above. Growing from the muddy edges is a single flower, opening itself to the night. The teacher gestures toward it and says, "This is your life. The mud is not your enemy. It is your nourishment. Without struggle, there is no strength. Without darkness, there is no contrast for light. Without difficulty, there is no growth." You look at the flower and realize your suffering has not been wasted. The heartbreaks, the failures, the nights you thought you would never endure, they were not detours. They were the soil from which your growth would bloom. The flower is not beautiful in spite of the mud. It is beautiful because of it. Another thinker once wrote that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to the depths. And in this moment, you see clearly what that means. Without challenges, inner life does not awaken. Without difficulty, the heart does not deepen. It is through the mud of life that wisdom is born. The teacher bends down, touching the water's surface, and ripples move outward once again. "Do not fear the mud," he whispers. "Do not despise your struggles. They are shaping you, preparing you, guiding you toward clarity. Trust the process, even when it hurts. As you walk back toward the hall, the stars are bright above you, scattered across the night sky like endless lamps. Each one shines because of countless conditions: the birth of galaxies, the burning of gas, the vastness of space. Nothing exists alone, and you remember again, everything has its reason. The teacher looks upward with you and smiles. You are like these stars. Even in darkness you shine. Even in silence, your light reaches further than you realize. And as the night grows quiet once more, you feel something shift inside you. Not the end of pain, not the erasure of questions, but trust. Trust that the mud will give rise to the flower. Trust that the river will always find its way. Trust that even when you cannot see the meaning, it is still unfolding. The hall is silent again, filled only with the soft rhythm of breath. You close your eyes, and the teacher's words echo faintly. Do not fear the mud. For a moment you think about all the mud in your own life. The heaviness of regrets, the sting of losses, the sharp edges of disappointment. And yet, as the silence deepens, something remarkable happens. The weight feels less like a chain and more like a teacher. Letting go does not mean abandoning what mattered. It means loosening your grip on what no longer serves you. You think back to the times you held on tightly, to a relationship that had ended, to a dream that no longer fit the person you were becoming, to anger that burned longer than it should have. Holding on felt like control, but in truth, it was resistance. It was standing in the river, demanding the current stop. And the river, patient and strong, kept flowing anyway. The teacher speaks softly. When you let go, you are not losing. You are making space. Space for new beginnings, space for peace, space for freedom. His voice is calm, but it cuts through like light breaking a storm. You picture a hand clutching a rope. The tighter it pulls, the deeper the burn. And yet, the moment the hand releases, the pain begins to heal. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that life moves whether you resist it or not, and peace is found not in clinging, but in trust. As you sit with this, the sound of a bell echoes across the grounds. It is time for the evening meal. Once again, students gather around simple bowls of food. Nothing extravagant, but everything offered with deep care. Before anyone takes a bite, they bow their heads in gratitude. Gratitude for the rain, the soil, the sun. Gratitude for the hands that grew the food, for the effort that carried it here, for the moment that allows it to be shared. You realize that gratitude is not something reserved for grand victories. It is hidden in the ordinary, waiting to be uncovered. A breath that fills your lungs, a cup of water quenching your thirst, the simple comfort of resting your body on the ground. Each one is proof that you are supported by life in ways you rarely notice. A modern teacher once said, "Walk as if you are kissing the earth with your feet." As you hear the quiet thanks spoken before the meal, you understand the spirit of these words. Gratitude turns every step, every bite, every breath into a miracle. It transforms the ordinary into the sacred. After the meal, you return to the garden, where lamps glow softly against the night. The teacher pauses by the shaped tree once again, and he points to the branches guided carefully over many years. "Balance," he says. "This is the heart of steadiness, to bend without breaking, to grow without clinging, to remain rooted even as the seasons change." Balance does not mean becoming cold or distant. It does not mean ignoring pain or pretending joy doesn't matter. It means standing steady in the middle of both, like a tree rooted deeply in the earth. The winds may come, the storms may rage, the blossoms may fall, but the tree remains. One ancient writer advised developing a mind like the earth itself, where both pleasant and unpleasant can fall without shaking it. Imagine living like that, untouched by the extremes of gain and loss, success and failure, praise and blame. not indifferent but free, not numb but balanced. And suddenly you understand. Peace is not found by avoiding the storm. It is found by learning to be calm within it. This steadiness is not escape. It is mastery. It is the quiet power to remain whole, no matter what arrives. As you stand there, the night air cool and gentle, you feel it within you. A balance you had forgotten, a steadiness you did not know you carried. And in that balance, a truth settles deeply. Everything that has happened has been training, shaping you for this quiet strength. The garden is quiet now, the lamps glowing faintly as if they too are meditating. The teacher walks slowly, each step deliberate, as though the earth itself deserves reverence. You follow in silence, and soon he stops beside a still pond. The moon reflects gently on its surface, perfect and unbroken, until he picks up a small stone and drops it into the water. Ripples spread outward, each ring touching the next, until they reach the farthest edge. This, he says softly, is cause and consequence. It is not thunder striking from the heavens, not a hidden judge keeping score, not punishment handed down by some unseen hand. It is simply action and result, ripples spreading through the vast pond of life. Sometimes the ripples return quickly, almost instantly. Sometimes they take years to travel back, but nothing is ever lost. Nothing disappears. You think of the choices you've made, some wise, some careless. A word spoken in kindness that lifted someone's spirit. A harsh sentence that cut deeper than you meant. A promise broken, a hand extended. Each one a pebble dropped into the water. Each one sending ripples into the lives of others, and eventually back to your own. The teacher turns to you with a gentle smile. This is why the ancients warned us not to dismiss even small actions as harmless. Drops of water fill a jar. Each choice matters. Every seed will ripen when the season is right. For a moment, silence settles again, and you reflect on how little control you truly have over when those seeds will grow. You cannot force the ripples to return more quickly, nor can you stop them once they've been sent, but you can choose what kind of stones you drop into the pond. You can plant seeds of compassion instead of cruelty, patience instead of anger, wisdom instead of ignorance. Still, you cannot help but wonder, why does kindness sometimes go unanswered? Why do good deeds seem invisible while selfishness appears rewarded? The teacher senses your thought and gestures toward the moonlit pond again. When you plant a seed, you do not dig it up each morning to see if it has grown. You water it, you give it sunlight, you wait. The same is true for the seeds of character. The result may rest beneath the soil for a long time, but in the right season, it will bloom. You breathe deeply, letting the metaphor take root. How many times had you rushed life, demanding quick returns? How often have you doubted the value of patience, of trust, of quiet persistence? But here, in the stillness of the night, you see clearly, transformation takes time. Growth cannot be forced. The teacher lifts his gaze toward the sky, where countless stars shine across the darkness. Everything is connected, he says. Every star you see is part of the same universe that holds you. The air you breathe has passed through countless lungs before yours. The water you drink once moved through clouds, rivers, and oceans. So too with your life. What you do does not end with you. It travels outward, touching others in ways you may never see. And suddenly, the web of existence feels real. A kindness you offered years ago may still be moving quietly through the lives of strangers. A smile shared may have softened a heart you never knew was breaking. Even a small choice today could ripple far into the future, reaching people you will never meet. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is without meaning. As you walk back toward the hall, you recall the words of Emerson. The creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn. You realize your life is full of acorns, moments, choices, seeds of intention. Some may grow quickly, some may take decades, but all of them hold the power to shape the landscape of your life and the lives of others in ways unseen. Inside the hall, the students prepare for evening meditation. You join them, settling once more into silence. As your breath steadies, you think of the pond, the ripples, the seeds beneath the soil. You think of cause and effect not as a sentence but as a promise, that nothing is ever wasted, that all things unfold when the time is right. And in that moment, a deep patience enters your heart, a patience for yourself, for your journey, for the seasons yet to come. The teacher's words linger. Trust the seeds you have planted. Trust the ripples you have sent. Trust that even when you cannot see it, life is working with you, not against you. The night deepens and the hall grows still. The chants fade into silence, leaving only the soft sound of wind brushing against wooden beams. You sit quietly, your breath slow, your body relaxed, and yet your mind begins to wander again. It drifts to the past. Moments you wish you could change, words you wish you had spoken, choices you wish you had avoided. Then it leaps into the future, worries of what might come, fears of what you cannot control. The teacher sitting beside you opens his eyes as though sensing your unease. He speaks softly, almost like a whisper. The past is gone. The future has not yet come. The present is all you truly have. You close your eyes, letting his words sink in. For so long you have lived as though time was your master, haunted by what has already passed, anxious about what is still to come. But here, in this moment, you begin to see that peace does not live in yesterday or tomorrow. Peace lives only now, in the steady rhythm of your breath. Still, the truth of impermanence feels heavy. How do you accept that everything you love will one day change, that joy will fade, that even the brightest days will eventually darken? The teacher senses your thoughts and tells you a simple story. He speaks of a man who once received a beautifully crafted cup. The man admired it, treasured it, and worried constantly that it might break. One day, a wise friend asked him, "Can you live as if this cup is already broken?" The man was confused. The friend explained, "When you understand that the cup will one day shatter, you can truly appreciate it while it is whole. You no longer cling. You simply enjoy it as it is, for as long as it lasts." The story feels like a quiet bell ringing within your heart. How often have you held on to people, moments, even objects, as though they should last forever? How often have you resisted change, fighting against the truth that all things rise and fall? But perhaps the secret is not to resist impermanence, but to embrace it, to see its beauty, to love without clinging, to live without fear, to cherish what is here now, knowing it will not last. The teacher places a delicate flower in your hand. Its petals are soft, its fragrance subtle. "This," he says, "is impermanence." Already the flower is beginning to fade, just as all living things do. But instead of sorrow, you feel wonder. The flower is precious not because it will last forever, but because it blooms at all. Its beauty is in its fragility, in the fleeting moment it offers. You realize now that clinging creates pain, while acceptance creates freedom. By seeing the cup as already broken, by seeing the flower as already fading, you are not robbed of joy. You are given permission to love more fully, more deeply, while you still can. As you sit with the flower in your hand, the teacher reminds you that surrender is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is releasing the illusion of control. The river flows whether you fight it or not. The seasons change whether you resist them or not. Life moves forward whether you cling to the past or fear the future. Surrender is not defeat, it is trust. Trust that the river knows its course. Trust that the seasons have their rhythm. Trust that life, in all its impermanence, carries you where you are meant to go. You breathe deeply, and for the first time in a long while, the weight begins to lift. You no longer need to hold everything together. You no longer need to force life into your design. Instead, you allow it to flow, just as it always has. The teacher smiles, as if he sees this surrender in your heart. Like the flower rising from the ground, he says, you too will rise from your suffering, not because the earth disappears, but because you learn to grow through it. The hall grows quiet again, the lamps flickering against the darkness. You close your eyes and let the silence hold you. Impermanence no longer feels like loss. It feels like freedom. The night deepens further, and the silence in the hall feels heavier, almost sacred. You sit, breathing gently, and a memory stirs within you, one of pain. Perhaps it was a betrayal, a heartbreak, or a loss so heavy it seemed to hollow you from the inside. You feel it rise again, like an old wound that still remembers how to ache. The teacher does not look away. Instead, he meets your eyes and speaks softly. Do not run from it. Sit with it. Pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to teach you. He reminds you that no one else can walk this inner path for you. No one else can learn the lessons hidden inside your suffering. You close your eyes and let the memory play out. The sharpness of the pain is still there, but beneath it, something else begins to appear. That heartbreak taught you resilience. That loss taught you compassion. That failure taught you humility. At first, these moments felt like punishments, but now you see them differently. They were not punishments, they were preparations. The teacher tells you a story about a sculptor. A block of marble stood tall, untouched, until the sculptor began to strike it with his chisel. Blow after blow, piece after piece, the stone felt broken. But slowly, what emerged was not destruction, but form. A figure of great beauty began to appear, one that had been hidden inside all along. The teacher looks at you and says, "Your suffering is the chisel. It does not come to destroy you. It comes to reveal you." You realize then that your wounds are not scars to be ashamed of. They are proof that you have lived, proof that you have endured, proof that you have been shaped. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Now those words feel alive in you. The very obstacles that once seemed to block your path were, in truth, the path itself. You think of the river again, smoothing stones through years of constant flow. It is not the stillness that shapes the stone. It is the friction, the resistance, the ceaseless movement of water against rock. In the same way, it is not ease that shapes you most deeply, but struggle. What once felt like erosion is, in truth, refinement. The teacher leads you outside into the cool night air. Above, the sky is alive with stars, countless points of light scattered across infinite darkness. He tells you, without the night, the stars cannot shine. And suddenly you see, your suffering has always been the dark sky, your wisdom, your compassion, your strength. These are the stars that shine because of it. Your joy is deeper now because of what you've endured. Your ability to appreciate peace, to taste freedom, comes from knowing what it is like to feel trapped. The contrast is not cruelty, it is teaching. As you stand beneath the stars, you feel a shift within. Your wounds do not need to close before you can walk forward. They walk with you, but no longer as chains. They walk as teachers, as guides, as reminders that even the hardest seasons carried meaning. And now, for the first time, you begin to trust, not only in joy, but in suffering too. Not because it is pleasant, but because it has always shaped you, refined you, and guided you closer to wisdom. The night has grown quiet, almost as if the earth itself has slowed to listen. You sit in the hall, your breath steady, your mind softening. For so long you believed that strength was found in control. controlling your future, controlling your emotions, even trying to control the people around you. But here, in the silence, you begin to see that real strength is not about control at all. It is about acceptance. You let this insight echo inside you. How often have you searched outside yourself for peace, only to find it fleeting? A new possession, a new relationship, a new achievement, each one promised fulfillment, but soon slipped through your hands. And now, sitting here, you realize why. Nothing outside of you can bring lasting peace. It is only in accepting what is, in surrendering to the present moment, that peace becomes real. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean giving up. It means seeing things clearly without distortion. It means letting life be what it is instead of endlessly fighting to make it what it isn't. When sorrow arrives, acceptance whispers, "This too has something to show me." When joy comes, acceptance says, "Cherish this, but do not cling." It is the middle way between forcing and fleeing. You close your eyes, and the silence deepens. In that stillness, you feel a strength you had overlooked before, not the strength of force, but the strength of calm. Stillness has a power that movement cannot match. Like a mountain unmoved by storms, stillness gives you a foundation no wind can carry away. You realize that it is not always action that changes the world. Sometimes it is presence, the presence of a calm mind, the presence of a heart that does not resist. As this understanding grows, you remember the flower blooming in muddy water. The mud did not prevent the flower from rising, it nourished it. Without the mud, the flower could not exist. Your pain, too, has been the soil for your awakening. It has given roots to your compassion, petals to your wisdom. You smile softly, knowing that what once felt like darkness was always preparing you for light. The teacher's voice drifts through the hall. Letting go is the path to freedom. His words stir something deep inside you. How long have you carried the weight of old regrets, old wounds, old fears? How many nights have you replayed conversations, clung to outcomes, or wished to rewrite the past? But holding on has never given you peace. It has only bound you tighter. You feel the truth of this now. To let go is not to lose. It is to free yourself, to free your heart from carrying burdens that were never meant to be carried forever, to free your mind from the endless loops of what if and if only. Letting go is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of freedom. You inhale deeply, as if drawing in courage, and exhale slowly, as if releasing years of hidden weight. With every breath, the body grows lighter. With every exhale, something old slips away: fear, regret, disappointment. You realize you do not need to hold on so tightly. Life carries itself. The river flows without your command. The seasons turn without your permission. And you too are carried always by forces larger than you. Acceptance is no longer an idea. It is a feeling. It is the quiet strength that comes when you stop fighting life and start trusting it. Stillness is no longer emptiness. It is presence, full and alive. Letting go is no longer a loss. It is freedom, pure and vast. The teacher bows his head slightly, and you sense the lesson is not in words anymore. It is in the silence itself, a silence that says, you are already free if you choose to let yourself be. The lamps in the hall cast a soft glow on the stone walls, shadows flickering like whispers of forgotten stories. You sit quietly, the air still and heavy with incense. There is a thought pressing in your mind, one you have carried for years. What if life is unfair? What if all my struggles have no meaning at all? The teacher seems to read your heart and smiles gently. He kneels beside a small pond, its surface like glass under the moonlight. With a single hand, he picks up a stone and drops it into the water. Ripples move outward, touching the far edges of the pond. This he says, is your life in motion. You watch the ripples spread. Some reach the shore quickly, others take longer. Some circle back, intersecting with one another, weaving patterns too complex to follow. The teacher continues, every action, every word, every thought is a stone dropped into the great pond of life. Some effects you see immediately, some take years, some return when you least expect them, but none are lost. You reflect on how many times you thought a kind word was forgotten, only to discover later that it touched someone deeply, or how a careless act created pain you never intended. Cause and effect is not punishment nor reward. It is simply the way the world works, unfolding across time. You realize now that much of your suffering came not from life itself, but from your impatience. You wanted answers now. You wanted fairness now. You wanted the path revealed in its entirety, forgetting that life unfolds one step, one season, one ripple at a time. Just because you cannot see the pattern yet does not mean it isn't there. The teacher's voice lowers, as if speaking a secret carried through centuries. Trust the ripples. Trust that nothing is wasted. Trust that even what you cannot see is guiding you. You close your eyes, and the memory of your own life begins to ripple through your mind. A betrayal that felt unbearable, a loss that seemed senseless, a failure that cut deeply. And yet, with distance, you can see how each one shaped you. The betrayal taught you to set boundaries. The loss deepened your compassion. The failure redirected your path toward something more authentic. What once felt meaningless now reveals its hidden thread. Trust, you realize, is not about knowing every answer. It is about walking even when the road is unclear. It is about believing that the same intelligence that makes flowers bloom and rivers flow is also present in your life. Lao Tzu once wrote, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." You repeat the words softly, and they feel like medicine to your restless heart. Imagine a farmer planting seeds. He does not dig them up each day to check if they are growing. He trusts the soil, the rain, the sun, and the rhythm of time. You, too, are being grown by forces you cannot always see. Your struggles are not signs of abandonment. They are the soil in which your roots are deepening. Your joys are not accidents. They are blossoms of seeds once planted, maybe long ago. The teacher gestures to the sky where stars shimmer faintly above the ridge. Even the stars, he says, shine from causes billions of years old. Do you think your life too is not touched by vast patterns? His words settle into you like a lullaby for the soul. You understand now that trust is not weakness. Trust is strength. The courage to walk without needing certainty, the wisdom to accept that what is unseen may still be shaping your tomorrow. The night grows deeper and you breathe slowly. Trust does not erase fear, but it softens it. Trust does not remove uncertainty, but it makes it livable. You feel lighter, freer, as if something has been lifted from your chest. Perhaps for the first time, you are willing to let life unfold without demanding to see the entire map. Trust is not blind. Trust is the clarity of knowing that even in the unseen, meaning is being written. That the ripples you cannot follow are still guiding you gently toward growth. The morning bells echo through the valley, their sound both gentle and unshakable, pulling you from the silence of meditation into the rhythm of a new day. You rise with the others and step into the courtyard, where the air is cool and alive with the fragrance of pine. Everything feels ordinary. Stone paths, wooden beams, simple cloaks, and yet something in you has changed. You see it all differently now. Gratitude stirs first. It is subtle, like a whisper at the edge of your mind. You feel grateful not because life is perfect, but because you finally see how even its imperfections are part of a greater whole. You remember the advice to rise and be thankful, for if you didn't learn a lot today, at least you learned a little. Gratitude is no longer something you practice only when things go your way. It becomes a lens through which every moment feels like a gift. You watch a student sweeping the courtyard. His movements are steady, his face serene. He does not rush, nor does he resist the dust returning with each breeze. His task is simple, yet his heart is at peace. This is inner balance, the ability to remain centered, whether joy or sorrow, gain or loss, praise or blame appear. A mind that cannot be shaken easily is a mind that cannot be enslaved. And you begin to see how freedom arises from this balance. Freedom is not having everything you want. Freedom is not a life without struggle. Freedom is the ability to meet struggle without losing yourself. Freedom is the space between experience and reaction, where you can choose understanding over anger, compassion over bitterness, patience over despair. Imagine walking down a busy street in the city. Someone shouts at you in frustration. Once, you would have carried that anger with you all day, letting it poison your peace. But now you remember, their shout is a ripple of causes you cannot see, born of their own pain, their own struggles. You do not have to absorb it. You can let it pass, like a cloud drifting across the sky. This is not indifference, it is freedom. Or think of the moments when your plans collapse, when the job is lost or the opportunity fades. Before, you would have fought reality, clinging to what was no longer possible. But now you see that every ending is also a beginning. Like the river, life is always moving, always flowing. You no longer demand that the current turn where you wish. It is enough to let it carry you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoic emperor and the philosophers before him spoke the same truth. Freedom is born in the mind. And when the mind is free, no circumstance can truly bind you. You return to the hall as voices rise in a low, steady chant. They do not demand anything of the world. They offer reverence to its unfolding. You close your eyes and join your breath to theirs, and for the first time, you feel that life is not against you. It is with you. The hardships you feared, the changes you resisted, the wounds you carried, they were not punishments, they were teachers. They shaped you into the very person now able to sit here breathing in peace. Gratitude fills you like sunlight. Balance steadies you like roots deep in the earth. Freedom lifts you like wings into the open sky. These are not things to chase. They awaken when you stop clinging, when you trust that everything, even this moment, is part of your training. As evening comes again, the sky softens into shades of amber and violet. The day is ending, but inside you, something feels as if it is only beginning. You sit quietly in the hall, the voices fading into silence, and you find yourself reflecting on the hardest parts of your life, the losses that once broke you, the betrayals that left you questioning your worth, the failures that felt like the end of everything. And yet, here you are. You survived them. More than that, you were shaped by them. The cracks you once cursed are the very places where wisdom has entered. Pain, you begin to see, is certain, but how long we suffer is shaped by how we meet that pain. Think of a wound. Left untended, it festers, but cleaned and cared for, it heals, leaving a scar that tells a story. Your suffering has been no different. When resisted, it became poison, but when understood, it became medicine. The teacher beside you leans forward and whispers, "The fire that burns also forges," and you realize the truth. Your suffering was not only something to endure, it was a forge, shaping your strength, purifying your compassion, refining your heart. You think back to the river, smoothing stones over years of unceasing flow. The stone does not resist the water, it does not cry out against its erosion. And yet, through the endless shaping, it becomes polished, beautiful, enduring. Could it be that your suffering has been doing the same? quietly shaping you, making you smoother, clearer, and more true to your essence. A student enters the hall carrying a lamp. Its flame glows against the darkness, steady and unwavering. He sets it before a simple statue of a thinker, deep in contemplation, and you feel its warmth. Fire destroys, but it also illuminates. Fire consumes, but it also gives light. Your suffering, too, has been both destroyer and teacher. It burned away illusions you once clung to. It revealed truths you had avoided. And in the end, it gave light, showing you who you are when everything else is stripped away. And in that moment you finally understand. It is in the nature of things to change. Suffering was never a punishment. It was a passage. It was life teaching you to let go of what cannot stay so that you could discover what cannot be taken from you, your awareness, your compassion, your capacity to love even when the world feels unkind. Now, as night deepens, you bow gently to your suffering, not as an enemy, but as a guide. It was the alchemy of your life, turning wounds into wisdom, turning endings into beginnings, turning the fragile human heart into a vessel of understanding. The night air grows cooler, carrying with it the scent of pine and earth after a long day of reflection. You sit quietly, the lamps flickering against the stone walls, and you begin to notice something new rising in your heart. It is soft, yet powerful, gentle, yet vast. It is compassion, not the kind you forced, not pity dressed as kindness, but a compassion born directly from your own suffering. For so long you may have judged yourself for hurting, for breaking, for not being strong enough. Yet now you see that even those moments were part of your path. As you soften toward yourself, forgiveness begins to take root. And in that same breath, you feel the capacity to soften toward others, their anger, their mistakes, their unkindness. Perhaps these too have grown from wounds you cannot see. Think of a candle. When one flame lights another, its own flame is not diminished. Instead, the light multiplies. Your suffering has been the spark that lit the flame of understanding, and that flame now has the power to ignite compassion for everyone you meet. As you breathe deeply, you remember moments when others showed you compassion at your lowest points, a friend who listened without judgment, a stranger who offered kindness without reason. Those moments carried you further than you realized. And now, through your own pain, you understand how powerful such gestures can be. A kind word, a gentle look, a moment of patience. These are not small things. They are seeds of healing planted in the hearts of others, just as they were planted in yours. The teacher beside you tells a story. There was once a traveler who fell into a deep pit. Others passed by, some mocking, some ignoring, until one person climbed down and sat with him. The traveler asked, "Why have you come down into the darkness?" The person replied, "Because I have been here before and I know the way out." Your suffering, too, has given you maps of the dark places. It allows you to walk beside others with true understanding, not from pity, but from shared humanity. Compassion, you realize, is not weakness. It is strength. It is the courage to remain open when life tempts you to close. It is the wisdom to see that no one's suffering is isolated, that all beings are caught in the same web of causes and conditions. And so, when you forgive, when you extend kindness, you are not excusing harm. You are breaking the chain. You are choosing to stop the ripple of pain and replace it with peace. The hall grows quieter, your heart lighter. You see now that suffering was not only your teacher, it was your bridge. A bridge leading you to compassion for yourself, and through that, compassion for all. The night has grown still, and the stars now shine like scattered jewels across the sky. You step outside the hall, the cool air brushing against your skin, and for a moment everything feels connected. The lamps flickering in the wind, the quiet murmur of the forest, the soft rhythm of your own breath. And in that silence, you begin to understand something the Stoics and many wise voices have always insisted. Nothing exists entirely alone. The food you ate earlier was not just bread. It was the rain clouds that once drifted across the sky, the farmer's effort, the warmth of the sun, the soil rich with life. That simple meal held the entire universe. And so too with your own being. You are not just yourself. You are your ancestors, your teachers, your friends, the countless lives and conditions that shaped you. Consider this. When a pebble falls into a pond, the ripples spread far beyond where the stone entered. So too with your actions, your words, even your thoughts. Every moment sends ripples into the lives of others, just as their actions ripple back into yours. This is why compassion matters, because in truth, there is no absolute separation. To harm another is to harm yourself. To care for another is to nourish yourself. The teacher walking beside you points toward the forest. Look at the trees, he says softly. Each one stands tall, but beneath the soil, their roots intertwine, sharing water, exchanging nutrients, even sending signals of warning and care. What appears as separate trunks is, in fact, one living system. Human beings are no different. We think of ourselves as isolated, but unseen roots bind us together. As you breathe in, you realize that even this breath is not yours alone. It was given by the trees, which transformed sunlight into oxygen, and the trees live because of the rain, the soil, the sun, and the stars. Everything supports everything. Nothing stands apart. When one thing exists, countless others have made it possible. You begin to sense that loneliness, which has followed you so often, may have been an illusion. Even in your darkest nights, you were never truly alone. The stars above you were shining. The earth beneath you was holding you. The people in your life, even those far away, were part of your story. And every being, in ways unseen, was connected to your breath, your heartbeat, your path. This understanding does not make life less mysterious, but it makes it less heavy. You no longer feel like a solitary figure fighting against the current. You see now that you are part of the current itself, moving with it, carried by it, and carrying others with you. And in that vision, compassion deepens into something boundless, something that cannot be confined to me and you, but belongs to all. The teacher turns to you, his eyes gentle. When you see yourself in others and others in yourself, he says, how could you ever act without care? His words land in your heart like water soaking into dry soil. And as you stand beneath the stars, you feel it clearly. Interconnectedness is not just a philosophy. It is the reality of your existence. The night deepens, and with the stillness of the stars above you, gratitude begins to rise within your heart, not as a forced thought, not as a polite thank you, but as something alive, something that swells when you truly see how much has been given to you. Gratitude, the ancients said, is one of the marks of a noble soul. It is not just an attitude, it is the natural fruit of wisdom, born when we realize how much of our lives rests on the care of others. Think of the breath you just took. It came to you freely, carried by trees, shaped by the wind, sustained by sunlight. Did you ask for it? No. And yet, it was given. Consider the body you live in, the heart that has been beating since before you were even aware of it, the eyes that open to light, the ears that carry the song of the world. These are miracles too often overlooked, yet they are the foundation of every moment you live. And then think of the people who have touched your life. Some gave you kindness, support, and encouragement. Others challenged you, tested you, even hurt you, but in doing so, they shaped your strength. Gratitude does not mean approving of every experience, but recognizing that every experience contributed to the person you are today. Even bitter medicine has its use, the teacher reminds you. Even a sharp stone can sharpen the blade. You begin to see how much you have received without ever realizing it. The food on your plate, the roof over your head, the books you've read, the songs you've loved, all of them came through the labor of others, through countless conditions that converged just for you. Rumi once wrote, "Wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will feed every corner of your life." Tonight, you feel the warmth of that cloak wrapping around you, soft and protective, reminding you that nothing you have is truly separate from the giving of the world. Gratitude transforms even the smallest moment into something sacred. A sip of water becomes a gift of the clouds. A flicker of laughter becomes a treasure shared between hearts. A quiet walk becomes an opportunity to touch the earth gently. Suddenly, life feels less like a burden to be endured and more like a gift to be honored. As you stand beneath the stars, you realize gratitude is not about waiting for something grand to happen. It is about noticing what is already here. The present moment, in all its simplicity, is filled with treasures. And when you see this clearly, fear loosens its grip. Restlessness fades. Contentment begins to bloom. The teacher's voice is soft as the night itself. To be grateful, he says, is to see the truth, that you are not alone, that life has always been carrying you. Gratitude is the seed of peace. His words sink deep, and you understand now. Gratitude is not the end of the path, but the beginning of a new way of living, one where every breath is received as a blessing, and every act of kindness is offered as a return gift to the world. From gratitude, something even greater begins to rise. When the heart sees clearly how much has been given, it can no longer remain closed. It begins to overflow, not only with thankfulness, but with love. A love that is not bound by possession, not limited by condition, but open, free, and vast. Imagine sitting quietly in the garden. The lamps flicker, the crickets sing, and the stillness feels like a gentle embrace. The teacher beside you closes his eyes and silently wishes, "May you be safe, may you grow, may you find ease." At first, you think he is speaking only to you. But then you realize he is offering these wishes to the whole world. His intention, like a prayer carried by the wind, reaches beyond walls, beyond borders, beyond time itself. This kind of goodwill begins within. You place a hand over your heart and whisper the same wish. May I be safe. May I grow. May I find ease. These are not selfish words. They acknowledge that your own healing, your own peace, is the foundation from which you can give to others. Just as a lamp must be lit before it can share light, your heart must be cared for before it can radiate care. Then, like ripples spreading outward, you extend this wish to others. First to those you love, friends, family, teachers, those who have been kind to you. May you be safe. May you grow. May you find ease. You can almost feel their presence, as if your heart is touching theirs across distance. Then gently, you send these wishes to those you feel neutral about. Strangers you pass on the street, people whose names you will never know, yet who share the same struggles, the same longing for peace. May you be safe. May you grow. May you find ease. Finally, with courage, you extend this kindness even to those who have hurt you. This is not to excuse their actions, nor to erase the pain they caused. It is to free yourself from hatred, to recognize that they too are caught in their own struggles, their own confusion. May you be safe. May you grow. May you find ease. In this moment, you feel what the wisest have always known. Hostility does not end hostility. Only understanding can break the chain. Goodwill does not erase suffering, but it transforms how you carry it. Instead of closing in on yourself, you open. Instead of tightening around anger, you soften. And with each breath, your heart becomes like the sky, spacious enough to hold storms without breaking, wide enough to carry both sunlight and shadow. As the teacher concludes the exercise, he reminds you, When love expands without measure, peace follows without effort. You open your eyes and notice the night feels different. The same stars shine, the same crickets sing, but now everything seems connected, held together by the thread of compassion that stretches from your heart into the heart of the world. From the gentle bloom of goodwill, a deeper strength begins to rise. Gratitude softens the heart, kindness opens it, and then compassion gives it courage. Compassion is not pity, nor is it weakness. It is the quiet bravery of looking suffering in the eyes, your own and that of others, and choosing not to run. Picture yourself sitting again in the garden. The lamps flicker low, and the teacher places a small candle in your hands. The flame is delicate, trembling in the evening air, yet it holds its place. This, he says, is compassion, a steady flame in the winds of life, not to erase suffering, but to bring light into it. You think of your own pain, the regrets, the losses, the rejections that once felt unbearable. Instead of pushing them away, you imagine holding them as you would hold a child, gently, without judgment. This is compassion, not pretending you are unbroken, but allowing your tenderness to be part of your strength. And then compassion expands outward. You see the faces of others, friends, strangers, even those who have hurt you, each one carrying hidden battles, each one longing to be free from pain. The teacher whispers, compassion does not ask why they suffer. Compassion simply says, I am here with you. In that moment, you realize the greatest gift is not fixing others, but being willing to stand with them, to bear witness to their journey without turning away. Something shifts when compassion takes root. Suffering no longer feels like meaningless cruelty. It becomes a bridge. Your wounds connect you to the wounds of others. Your healing becomes their healing too. What once felt like isolation becomes belonging. What once felt like a burden becomes a purpose. Each act of kindness, each moment of presence, each choice to remain open in the face of pain weaves meaning into life. And with that, you feel it again. Everything that happens can be transformed, not so that you may be crushed by suffering, but so that through compassion you may be transformed by it. From compassion, something deeper begins to awaken. It is as if the heart, softened by kindness and strengthened by courage, now gives birth to clear vision. Wisdom does not arrive in a sudden flash, nor as a secret handed down by another. It grows slowly, like dawn creeping across the horizon. And its first lesson is simple. Suffering itself is not the enemy. It is the teacher. You remember the rough stone in the river, shaped smooth by years of current. That stone is wisdom, not born perfect but refined by the very hardships that once felt unbearable. Each cut, each scrape, each fall of water carving away what is unnecessary until only the essence remains. Wisdom teaches you that pain is not random. It arises when causes ripen, and it passes when those causes dissolve. Like clouds drifting across the sky, suffering appears and disappears. What makes it linger is not the pain itself, but our clinging to it. If we loosen our grip, even slightly, the weight begins to lift. Imagine now sitting again in the quiet hall. The teacher places before you an empty bowl. This, he says, is your mind. Then he pours in water, clear, still, reflecting light. One by one, he drops pebbles into the bowl. Each pebble is a thought, a memory, a fear. The water ripples, distorts, and loses its reflection. This, he says, is how agitation clouds wisdom. But notice, the water itself was never destroyed. Remove the stones, let them settle, and clarity returns. Wisdom is that clarity, the ability to see life as it is without distortion, to see that joy and pain are not permanent, to see that every ending is also a beginning, to see that nothing in your life, no matter how hard, has been without meaning. You think back to your own story, the heartbreaks, the rejections, the disappointments that once felt unbearable. With wisdom, they look different now. They are not scars of punishment, but pathways of growth. They taught you patience when you wanted control. They taught you humility when pride tried to lead. They taught you compassion when judgment felt easier. Suffering became a mirror, showing you not what was wrong with life, but what was unawakened within you. The teacher's voice is gentle. Do not turn away from suffering. Do not cling to it either. See it, learn from it, let it pass. That is wisdom. And suddenly you realize why everything you've lived through matters, not because life is fixed or scripted, but because every moment, even the painful ones, carries within it the seed of awakening. To resist is to suffer. To see clearly is to be free. From wisdom comes a stillness like a lake untouched by wind. It is not indifference nor apathy. It is the quiet strength of a mind that no longer fights what is, but receives it with balance. The Stoics called this equanimity, the ability to remain steady no matter how the winds of life may blow. Consider how much of our suffering is born not from events themselves, but from our resistance to them. We want joy to stay, and it leaves. We want pain to vanish, and it lingers. We chase, we resist, we cling. And in that endless struggle, peace slips through our fingers. Equanimity teaches a different way. It whispers, let things be as they are, and you will suffer less. Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, an old text says, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. Equanimity does not mean you feel nothing. It means you are not controlled by feelings. When joy arises, you welcome it without clinging. When pain arrives, you see it without despair. You become like that solid rock, weathered yet unmoved. Imagine now walking again through the garden at dusk. The sky is painted with shades of orange and purple. Crickets begin to sing. A teacher sits quietly by the pond, eyes half closed, hands resting in his lap. A breeze stirs the water, ripples spread, then fade back into stillness. He says softly, life is like this pond. Disturbances come, but the water always returns to calm. Your mind, too, can return to calm if you stop stirring it with endless grasping. Equanimity is not coldness. It is warmth held in balance. It allows you to care deeply without drowning in attachment. You can love fully, yet let go when the time comes. You can work hard, yet accept the outcome with grace. You can live with passion, yet bow to impermanence. Think of the flower you saw earlier, rising from the earth. Its beauty does not deny the soil. It is born because of it. In the same way, equanimity does not deny joy or sorrow. It embraces both, knowing that each has its place. When you see this truth clearly, life stops feeling like a storm you must survive and becomes instead a river you can move with. Now, as night deepens around the courtyard, you feel the weight of the day dissolve. The voices of doubt grow quiet. The ache of clinging loosens its grip. You realize that acceptance is not giving up. It is setting yourself free. To live with equanimity is to live with freedom. When the heart learns to rest in equanimity, something even deeper becomes possible: trust in the larger order of things. Not a blind trust that denies reality, but the kind of trust that grows when you see how every thread of your life, even the painful ones, has been woven into a greater tapestry. Trust is the soft surrender that whispers, I do not need to see the whole path to take the next step. It is the flame of the inner life. It is what keeps us moving even when the night feels dark. It is what reminds us that storms do not last forever, and that even in the mud, something is quietly preparing to bloom. Think of the seasons. Winter feels endless, yet beneath the frozen earth, seeds are quietly preparing for spring. Summer blazes brightly, only to fade into autumn's calm. Nothing stays, nothing is wasted. Trust means you no longer demand the season to change on your command. You allow it to unfold, knowing it will in its time. The teacher in the garden tells you a story. Once, a farmer planted a seed, he begins. Every day he dug in the soil looking for growth, but the seed withered, never given time to take root. Another farmer planted the same seed, but simply watered it and trusted the sun. In time, the sprout broke through, then grew tall, then bore fruit. Trust does not mean inaction. It means giving life the space to ripen at its own pace. You recall the river once more, flowing endlessly down the mountain. It does not rush to meet the sea, nor resist the bends in its path. It simply moves, always forward, guided by conditions greater than itself. Trust feels like that river. It teaches you to stop grasping at certainty and instead flow with the unknown, knowing the current will carry you where you are meant to be. As you reflect, you notice how trust softens fear. Fear shrinks your world, insisting you control every outcome. Trust expands it, reminding you that not every answer is needed now. It allows you to live with openness, to welcome the mystery without demanding it reveal itself all at once. With this trust, even your unanswered questions feel lighter, no longer burdens, but companions walking beside you until their time to unfold arrives. As night wraps around the courtyard, the lamps glow softly against the dark. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of pine and earth. You breathe deeply, and in that breath, you sense it. You are held. Not by chance, not by chaos, but by the simple, mysterious law of cause and effect flowing endlessly, carrying you forward. And you realize you no longer need to resist it. You can trust the unfolding. There comes a moment when trust grows so deep that it no longer demands explanations. It no longer bargains with life, asking for guarantees. Instead, it bows quietly, not in defeat, but in surrender. This surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. It is the strength to release control, to stop grasping at outcomes, and to rest in the mystery of existence. Peace, you now see, comes from within. When you stop wrestling with what is, the mind loosens its grip, and suddenly, the stillness you've been seeking reveals itself. Peace was never far away. It was only hidden beneath resistance. Imagine holding a rope in a game of tug-of-war. The harder you pull, the tighter the tension, the deeper the struggle. But the moment you let go, the rope falls and the struggle dissolves into nothing. Life is much the same. We suffer not because of what is happening, but because of how tightly we cling to it. When you surrender, the weight you've been dragging suddenly feels lighter, as if it was never yours to carry. Not the kind of magic people talk about lightly, but the quiet, unsettling kind, the moment you realize that most of the suffering in your life hasn't come from what actually happened, but from what you were afraid might happen, from the endless conversations you rehearsed in your head, from the future you lived through 1,000 times without ever arriving there, from the pressure of trying to control outcomes that were never truly yours to command. If you've ever felt exhausted not by life itself, but by your own thoughts about life, then this moment, right now, is speaking directly to you. The Stoics understood something most of us are never taught. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about them. And yet, day after day, we carry worry as if it were our responsibility, as if imagining disaster were preparation, as if tension were proof that we care. But what if worry isn't wisdom at all? What if it's the very thing standing between you and clarity, strength, and peace? What if the moment you stop fighting the future is the moment life begins to meet you halfway? Today isn't about pretending everything is fine. Stoicism never asked us to deny reality. It asked us to meet reality clearly, without panic, without illusion, and without self-betrayal. This is about learning how to place your energy where it actually matters, your character, your choices, your inner discipline, and releasing the rest. Because when you stop trying to control what was never yours, something surprising happens. Your mind steadies, your actions sharpen, and life starts unfolding with far less resistance. If you're here because you want more than temporary motivation, if you're seeking wisdom that strengthens you over time, clarity that outlasts fear, and a philosophy that helps you live well no matter what comes, then consider subscribing, not as a favor to me, but as a commitment to yourself, a quiet decision to walk the Stoic path of self-mastery, truth, and inner freedom. I want to be completely honest with you before we begin. There are moments in life when nothing feels obviously wrong, yet something inside you is constantly tense. Your body is here, but your mind is always somewhere else, running ahead, predicting, bracing, preparing. You wake up already tired, not because the day has started, but because your thoughts never really stopped. And slowly, without realizing it, worry becomes the background noise of your life. Not loud enough to panic you, but persistent enough to drain you. The Stoics noticed this long before modern psychology put words to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What you think about repeatedly does not stay abstract. It settles into you. It shapes how you breathe, how you stand, how you speak, how you move through the world. Over time, worry stops feeling like something you do and starts feeling like who you are. And that is where suffering quietly deepens. Most people believe worry is a sign of intelligence or responsibility. They think that if they stop worrying, something bad will happen, as if anxiety is holding the universe together. But worry has never prevented pain. It has only made pain arrive earlier, linger longer, and feel heavier than it needed to. Seneca once warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and he wasn't speaking poetically. He was describing a mental habit that steals peace from the present in exchange for an illusion of control. You don't wake up one day and decide to become a worrier. It happens gradually. A small concern here, a habit of overthinking there, a moment where fear feels safer than trust. And slowly the mind learns a pattern. Scan for danger, rehearse loss, prepare for disappointment. The brain becomes skilled at it, the same way hands become skilled at a craft practiced every day. Carl Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Worry works exactly like that. It operates beneath awareness, quietly shaping decisions, reactions, and self-image. At some point, you may notice something unsettling. Even when things are going well, you don't feel calm. There is always a sense that something is about to go wrong. You wait for the other shoe to drop. You hold joy carefully, as if it might break. This is not intuition. This is a nervous system that has been trained to stay on guard. The Stoics would say this is the cost of giving your inner peace to external outcomes. Epictetus taught that some things are within our control and some things are not, and that wisdom begins when we stop confusing the two. Worry thrives exactly in that confusion. It spends endless energy trying to manage what cannot be managed: other people's reactions, future events, chance, timing, loss. And while your mind is busy wrestling with the uncontrollable, the only thing you truly own, your inner state, goes neglected. This is where the shift begins. Not with positive thinking, not with denial, but with clarity. The realization that worry is not protecting you. It is exhausting you. It is not preparing you for life. It is pulling you away from it. When you stop treating worry as a necessary tool and start seeing it as a habit, something opens. Habits can be changed. Patterns can be interrupted. The Stoics believed character is shaped by repeated choices, not by sudden insight. Peace works the same way. Your mind is powerful, but it is not a fortune teller. It creates vivid images of the future and presents them with confidence, as if they were facts. Failure, rejection, loss, played on repeat with cinematic detail. Yet, when you look back honestly, how often did life unfold the way your fear predicted? Rarely. And even when difficult things did happen, you were not as helpless as your mind insisted you would be. You adapted, you endured, you learned. Jung observed that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. In the same way, one of the greatest burdens an adult carries is the unlived future they are constantly rehearsing instead of living. The Stoics did not argue that the future doesn't matter. They argued that living in it does damage. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to confine his attention to the present, not because tomorrow is irrelevant, but because tomorrow is unreachable. Worry lives in a time that does not exist yet. Peace lives where your feet are. When you return to the present moment, even briefly, you often discover something surprising. Right now is manageable. Right now, you are breathing. Right now, you are alive. Right now, you are not being crushed by the catastrophe your mind keeps rehearsing. This return to the present is not an escape from responsibility. It is the foundation of wise action. A calm mind sees clearly. A panicked mind reacts blindly. The Stoics valued reason not because it was cold, but because it was steady. They understood that clarity disappears when fear takes over. Modern psychology agrees. A nervous system stuck in fight or flight cannot access creativity, perspective, or nuance. Worry narrows your vision until all you can see is threat. There is also something subtle that happens when you worry constantly. You begin to distrust life itself. You move as if the world is hostile, unpredictable, waiting to harm you. That posture leaks into relationships, work, and self-image. You grip tightly, you over-explain, you over-prepare, you try to force outcomes. Seneca warned that fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. When you resist everything, life becomes a struggle. When you cooperate with reality, life becomes lighter, not easier, but lighter. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings. Stoicism never taught indifference. It taught intelligent engagement. You do your part fully, you show up, you act with integrity, and then you release the outcome. You allow life to respond in its own way. This shift from controlling results to controlling effort changes everything. Anxiety loses its fuel when outcomes are no longer the measure of your worth. Over time, something else becomes clear. Many problems shrink when they stop receiving constant attention. Worry feeds problems by keeping them alive in the mind long after they need to be there. Marcus Aurelius observed that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it. When you replay a problem endlessly, you keep it emotionally present even when nothing new is happening. You turn a moment into a permanent state. When you step back, one of three things usually happens. The situation resolves on its own. A solution appears once the mind quiets enough to see it, or you realize the issue was never as serious as you believed. Worry often magnifies shadows until they look solid. Calm reveals what is actually there. Your body understands this before your thoughts do. Tension, shallow breathing, tightness in the chest. These are not random. They are signals. The body reacts to imagined danger the same way it reacts to real danger. When worry becomes constant, your body lives in a permanent emergency. Jung spoke often about the wisdom of the body, warning that ignoring it leads to neurosis. The Stoics, too, believed the body and mind were not separate systems but parts of the same whole. Listening to your body does not mean surrendering to fear. It means noticing when you are overriding yourself. When something consistently creates contraction, physically, emotionally, it is worth paying attention. Calm decisions feel different from anxious ones. Even when a calm choice is difficult, there is a sense of alignment beneath the discomfort. When you stop worrying long enough to feel that difference, decision-making becomes clearer. At some point, you may notice that worry feels automatic. That is because it is. Neural pathways strengthen with use. The more you rehearse fear, the faster your mind travels that road. This is not a personal failure, it is biology. And biology can change. Neuroplasticity confirms what Stoics intuited centuries ago. The mind reshapes itself through practice. Each time you interrupt a worry loop and choose a steadier thought, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new one. This is why Stoicism emphasizes daily practice, not grand gestures, small repetitions, catching one exaggerated thought, pausing one reaction, choosing one calmer response. Over time, peace stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural. Worry loses its authority when it is no longer obeyed automatically. Focus plays a quiet but powerful role here. What you attend to grows in your experience. The Stoics understood attention as a form of discipline. Modern psychology explains it through cognitive filters. When your focus is locked on threat, your mind finds more reasons to feel unsafe. When your focus widens to include stability, progress, and support, your internal world changes. Not because reality changed, but because you are finally seeing more of it. This does not mean ignoring problems. It means placing them in proportion. A problem is part of your life, not the definition of it. When you stop scanning constantly for what could go wrong, you notice what is already working. You notice your resilience. You notice moments of ease. You notice that not everything is urgent. Gradually, the present moment begins to feel like a place you can live in, not just survive. The Stoics return to this idea relentlessly because it works. The present is where action happens. It is where character is formed. It is where peace is possible. Worry pulls you into imaginary futures. Presence brings you back to reality. And in reality, something important becomes undeniable. You are stronger than you think. Worry convinces you that the next challenge will be the one that breaks you. But your life tells a different story. You have survived loss, confusion, disappointment, and fear before. Not because you were fearless, but because you were resilient. Epictetus reminded his students that hardship reveals character rather than destroys it. Each difficulty you lived through added depth, not damage. When you trust your strength, you stop demanding guarantees from life. You move forward without needing certainty. This is freedom. You no longer delay living until fear disappears. You act alongside it, calmly, without letting it rule you. Eventually, a deeper trust emerges. Not blind optimism, but grounded confidence. A sense that life is not conspiring against you. That setbacks are not punishments. That delays may be redirections. The Stoics called this alignment with nature, with the larger order of things. Marcus Aurelius believed that everything fits into a greater pattern, even when the pattern is not yet visible. When you stop worrying, you start noticing how often things unfold in ways your fear could never predict. Missed opportunities lead to better ones. Endings create space. Obstacles refine you. This does not make pain pleasant, but it makes it meaningful. Jung wrote that meaning is what transforms suffering into something bearable. Stoicism offers that meaning through acceptance and purpose. At this point, worry no longer feels like a necessity. It feels like an old habit you have outgrown. You still plan, you still care, but you no longer sacrifice your peace to imaginary futures. You meet life with steadiness instead of resistance. This is how everything starts working out, not because life becomes perfect, but because you stop fighting it at every turn. You stop draining yourself with constant fear. You show up clearer, calmer, and more capable. You live where your power actually is. And if this way of seeing life resonates with you, if you feel something in you soften or steady, then staying connected to this philosophy matters. Subscribing is not about following a channel. It is about choosing to keep returning to ideas that strengthen your inner life. It is a quiet commitment to growth, clarity, and self-mastery. A reminder that you don't have to carry unnecessary weight, that peace is a practice, and that you are capable of living with far more calm than you were ever taught to believe. And as that understanding settles in, something else begins to change quietly beneath the surface. You start to notice how often worry was never about the situation itself, but about identity, about who you thought you had to be in order to survive, the one who anticipates everything, the one who never relaxes, the one who stays alert, prepared, guarded. For a long time, worry felt like responsibility, like proof that you were serious about life. But slowly, you realize it was also a form of self-mistrust. A belief that if you loosened your grip, everything would fall apart. The Stoics would say this belief is the real source of suffering. Not the event, not the uncertainty, but the story you tell yourself about what would happen if you stopped bracing. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again that nothing truly valuable can be taken from a person who governs their inner life. And yet most people live as if peace is fragile, as if calm is something that must be earned only after everything goes right. This belief keeps you trapped, because everything going right is a future that never fully arrives. What begins to emerge instead is a different kind of strength, not the tense, clenched strength of control, but the grounded strength of trust. Trust does not mean expecting good things to happen. It means knowing that whatever happens, you will meet it with clarity rather than panic. Carl Jung once said that the acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. When you stop worrying compulsively, you are practicing that acceptance. You are saying, I trust myself enough to face reality as it is. This trust changes how you move through daily life. You listen more carefully, you speak more slowly, you respond instead of react. You no longer rush to fill silence or fix every discomfort. You notice that many things resolve themselves when you stop interfering with fear. Conversations soften, conflicts lose intensity. Decisions become simpler, not because they are easy, but because you are no longer trying to solve 10 imaginary problems at once. There is also a subtle shift in how you relate to time. Worry fractures time. It pulls pieces of tomorrow into today and leaves you exhausted before anything has actually happened. When you stop worrying, time begins to feel whole again. The present moment regains its shape. You can give attention fully instead of partially. You notice details you used to miss. The warmth of light, the steadiness of your breath, the simple fact of being alive without needing to justify it. The Stoics understood this as alignment with nature, not nature as scenery, but nature as reality unfolding according to its own order. Fighting that order creates friction. Cooperating with it creates flow. Seneca warned that a person who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. When you stop pre-living pain, you recover an enormous amount of energy. That energy does not disappear. It returns to you as focus, creativity, and resilience. At this stage, worry no longer feels urgent. It feels familiar, like an old habit knocking on the door. Sometimes it still shows up. Stoicism never promised permanent calm. What changes is your relationship to it. You recognize worry as a signal, not a command. You acknowledge it without surrendering to it. You let it pass without building your life around it. This is mastery, not domination, but understanding. You also begin to see how worry once shaped your self-image, how it made you doubt your worth when outcomes were uncertain, how it tied your sense of safety to external validation. When that loosens, confidence becomes quieter and deeper. You no longer need constant reassurance. You stop explaining yourself so much. You feel less compelled to prove anything. Your presence alone feels sufficient. Carl Jung spoke about individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who you were conditioned to be. Letting go of worry is part of that process. It strips away false responsibilities. It exposes the difference between what matters and what merely feels urgent. You begin to act from values instead of fear, from character instead of compulsion. This does not mean life stops challenging you. It means challenges no longer define you. When difficulty arises, you meet it directly without layering it with catastrophic imagination. You take the next clear step, then the next. You trust that clarity emerges through action, not rumination. The Stoics believed that virtue reveals itself through behavior under pressure, not through avoidance of pressure. Calm does not come from hiding. It comes from engagement without panic. As this way of being deepens, something unexpected happens. People respond differently to you, not because you changed them, but because you changed the energy you bring. Calm invites honesty. Stability invites trust. When you stop carrying fear into every interaction, relationships breathe. You listen instead of anticipating rejection. You speak truthfully without aggression. You walk away from what does not align without bitterness. Even solitude changes. When you are no longer at war with your thoughts, being alone feels spacious instead of heavy. Silence becomes restorative rather than threatening. You stop distracting yourself constantly. You can sit with yourself without needing escape. This is a quiet milestone. It means you are no longer afraid of your own inner life. The Stoics placed enormous value on this inner freedom. Epictetus taught that freedom is not the absence of obstacles, but the ability to remain undisturbed by them. Worry is disturbance rehearsed in advance. When you release it, you reclaim freedom in small, everyday moments. Waiting no longer feels like wasted time. Uncertainty no longer feels like punishment. Life becomes less of a test and more of a practice. Gradually, your sense of direction clarifies. You no longer chase every possibility out of fear of missing out. You choose more deliberately. You say no more often. You conserve energy. You respect your limits. This is not withdrawal from life. It is refinement. Jung wrote that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Worry was part of that darkness. Seeing it clearly allows you to move beyond it. There is also grief in this process. Grief for the years spent anxious, for the peace you postponed, for the moments you were present physically but absent mentally. This grief is natural. It is not regret. It is recognition. And like all honest recognition, it opens the door to compassion for yourself and for others who are still trapped in the same cycle. At some point, the idea that life is working out takes on a new meaning. It no longer means getting everything you want. It means becoming someone who can handle what comes, someone who remains steady in uncertainty, someone who trusts the process without needing to see the whole map. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the universe is change and life is opinion. When you stop confusing the two, peace becomes possible. You start to see that many things you feared were simply teachers. Delays taught patience, loss taught depth, uncertainty taught humility. None of these lessons could have been learned through control alone. They required surrender, not surrender to fate, but surrender of illusion. The illusion that you could think your way into safety. And so the story continues, not with a dramatic ending, but with a quieter beginning, a life lived with less noise, less internal resistance, more presence, more trust. You still plan, you still strive, but you no longer sacrifice the present to protect an imagined future. This is how everything begins to work out. not because life suddenly obeys you, but because you stop fighting what cannot be controlled and focus fully on what can: your character, your attention, your response, your values. If you've stayed with this reflection, it's because something in you already knows this truth. You are not broken, you are simply overburdened. Peace was never missing. It was waiting for you to stop looking for it in places it could never be found. And choosing to return to these ideas again and again is not passive. It is an act of discipline, a daily alignment with clarity over fear. This is why staying connected to Stoic thought matters, not as inspiration but as practice, as a steady compass when life feels uncertain. Subscribing, in that sense, is not about following a voice. It is about reminding yourself of your own, a quiet commitment to live with intention, resilience, and inner order, to keep choosing calm where panic once lived, to keep laying down unnecessary weight. And as the path deepens, you begin to notice something subtle but profound. The way you experience life is no longer dominated by anticipation. You are no longer constantly leaning forward into what might happen next. Instead, you start inhabiting your own life again. The present moment stops feeling like a waiting room and starts feeling like a place where something meaningful is already happening. This shift is quiet, almost easy to miss, but it changes everything. Before, your attention was scattered. Part of you was always elsewhere, planning, worrying, rehearsing, bracing. Now, your attention gathers itself. It becomes steadier, more intentional. You begin to realize that attention is one of the most valuable things you possess, and worry was spending it recklessly. The Stoics treated attention as sacred. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to guard his mind carefully, because whatever he allowed to enter it would shape his character. When you stop feeding worry, you reclaim your attention, and with it, your sense of agency. This reclamation brings clarity. You see situations more cleanly, without the fog of imagined consequences. Decisions feel less overwhelming because they are no longer burdened with the impossible task of guaranteeing the future. You choose based on values rather than fear. You act based on what is right, not what feels safest. This is the Stoic ideal in practice, living in accordance with reason, guided by virtue rather than anxiety. You may also begin to notice that your emotional reactions soften. Things that once triggered spirals now register as information. Disappointment still arises, but it does not define the entire day. Criticism still stings, but it no longer shatters your sense of self. Uncertainty still exists, but it no longer feels like a threat to your survival. This is not numbness, it is emotional maturity. It is the difference between being ruled by emotion and being informed by it. Carl Jung believed that maturity comes when the ego learns its proper place, not abolished, but no longer in command of everything. Worry is often the ego trying desperately to protect itself from humiliation, loss, or pain. When you stop obeying worry, the ego relaxes. It realizes it does not have to control every outcome to remain whole. This relaxation allows a deeper intelligence to emerge, one rooted in experience rather than fear. With this shift, you begin to trust your own timing. You stop rushing decisions just to escape discomfort. You stop forcing clarity before it is ready to appear. You understand that some answers arrive only after patience has been practiced. Seneca wrote that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. When worry steps aside, you start to feel this rhythm in your own life. You move when it is time to move. You rest when it is time to rest. You wait without panic. Waiting used to feel unbearable because it gave your mind too much space to imagine disaster. Now, waiting becomes neutral, sometimes even peaceful. You no longer interpret delay as danger. You see it as part of the unfolding process. This alone removes a tremendous amount of suffering. So much anxiety comes from the belief that if things are not happening now, something is wrong. Letting go of that belief restores balance. Another change quietly takes root. Your relationship with failure evolves. When worry dominated, failure felt catastrophic. It was proof that your fears were justified, proof that you should have worried more, prepared more, controlled more. But without that lens, failure becomes feedback, information, a moment in a longer journey rather than a final verdict. Epictetus taught that no one is harmed unless they choose to be harmed by their judgments. When failure is no longer fused with identity, it loses its power to define you. This new relationship with failure encourages courage. You try things you once avoided. You speak when you once stayed silent. You step forward without needing guarantees. Not recklessly, but honestly. You accept that uncertainty is part of growth, not a sign that something has gone wrong. Jung observed that the greatest risk is not living your life fully. Letting go of worry removes one of the biggest barriers to that fullness. You may notice, too, that your sense of self becomes less fragile. You stop measuring your worth by external approval or outcomes. Praise feels pleasant, but not necessary. Criticism feels uncomfortable, but not devastating. Your center of gravity moves inward. The Stoics called this inner citadel, the part of you that remains steady regardless of external chaos. When worry ruled, that citadel was constantly under siege. Now it is fortified by perspective. As this inner steadiness grows, compassion often follows, not only for yourself, but for others. You recognize worry in other people, the tension, the overreaction, the defensiveness, and instead of taking it personally, you see it as fear looking for safety. This understanding softens your responses. You don't absorb other people's anxiety as easily. You set boundaries without guilt. You remain kind without self-abandonment. This balance between firmness and compassion is another hallmark of Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to be tolerant with others and strict with himself, not in punishment, but in discipline. When worry fades, discipline becomes easier because it is no longer fueled by fear. You take care of your body because you respect it. You manage your time because you value it. You choose your thoughts because you understand their impact. There is also a noticeable shift in how you experience pleasure. When worry dominated, pleasure was often shadowed by fear of loss. Even good moments felt temporary and fragile. Now, enjoyment becomes more complete because it is no longer rushed or guarded. You allow yourself to be present without immediately imagining the end. This does not make pleasure clingy, it makes it honest. You enjoy without grasping. You appreciate without fear. The Stoics believed that true enjoyment comes from moderation and presence, not excess or escape. When you stop worrying, you no longer need pleasure to distract you from your thoughts. You can enjoy simple things fully because your mind is not elsewhere. A conversation, a walk, a quiet moment. These experiences regain their depth. Over time, this way of living begins to feel natural. Not because life is easy, but because you are no longer exhausting yourself by fighting reality. You accept that discomfort is part of being alive, but suffering is optional. Worry was adding layers of suffering that were never required. Removing it does not make you immune to pain, but it makes pain cleaner, shorter, more honest. You also begin to notice how much energy you now have. Mental energy, emotional energy, creative energy. Worry was draining these reserves constantly. Without it, you feel more capable, more alive. You engage with life rather than bracing against it. This engagement brings meaning, not because everything is meaningful, but because you are fully present for what is. Jung wrote that meaning makes a great many things endurable, perhaps everything. Stoicism does not promise happiness in the shallow sense. It offers meaning through alignment with reality, reason, and virtue. When you stop worrying, you make space for that meaning to emerge. You stop asking life to guarantee comfort and start asking yourself to live well regardless of circumstances. At this stage, trust in life becomes less of an idea and more of an experience. You have evidence now. You have seen that you can face uncertainty without collapsing. You have felt calm where panic used to live. You have made decisions without perfect clarity and survived. This evidence matters. It weakens the old narrative that worry was necessary. You still plan for the future, but planning feels different. It is strategic, not anxious, flexible, not rigid. You understand that plans are tools, not contracts. You adjust them as reality unfolds. You no longer interpret change as failure. You see it as responsiveness. Seneca warned against clinging to fixed expectations because life delights in disrupting them. When you accept this, disruption loses its sting. Slowly, the idea that everything starts working out becomes grounded rather than magical. It does not mean every desire is fulfilled. It means life feels workable, manageable, coherent. You trust that you can meet whatever comes with steadiness. This trust changes how you wake up in the morning and how you lie down at night. Your mind is quieter, your body is less tense, your sleep deepens. You begin to understand that peace is not something you reach once and keep forever. It is something you return to again and again through practice. Each moment offers a choice: spiral or steady, react or respond, resist or accept. The Stoics did not expect perfection. They expected effort, consistency, willingness. And that willingness to keep returning to clarity is what truly changes a life. It is not dramatic, it is daily. It shows up in how you speak to yourself when things go wrong, in how quickly you release what you cannot change, in how gently you treat your own mistakes. Over time, these small acts of wisdom compound into a fundamentally different way of being. You are no longer living in constant defense mode. You are living in alignment with yourself, with reality, with the present moment. This alignment brings a quiet confidence that does not need to announce itself. You simply feel grounded. And from this grounding, life does not feel like a series of threats to survive. It feels like a process to participate in. You are no longer trying to outrun uncertainty. You are walking with it. This is where Stoicism ultimately leads, not to detachment from life, but to deeper engagement with it. Free from unnecessary fear, free from mental noise, free from the belief that you must control everything to be safe. And if you continue walking this path, returning to these ideas when worry tries to reclaim its place, you reinforce something essential. You are capable of living with calm in an uncertain world. You are capable of choosing clarity over chaos. You are capable of trusting yourself. Over time, you may notice that even silence feels different. Silence used to invite anxious thought. Now it invites presence. You can sit without distraction, walk without stimulation, rest without guilt. This is not laziness, it is restoration. Seneca warned that constant busyness is another form of mental disorder. When you stop worrying, you stop fleeing stillness. You discover that stillness is where clarity regenerates. Clarity, once regained, has a momentum of its own. You begin to sense when something is out of alignment before it becomes a crisis. You listen sooner, you adjust earlier, you course-correct gently instead of waiting for collapse. This is one of the hidden benefits of calm. It makes life easier not by removing challenges, but by helping you respond before they escalate. As this continues, the question of meaning inevitably arises. Without constant worry to distract you, you may feel a pull toward deeper purpose. What am I actually doing with my time? What am I cultivating? Who am I becoming? These questions are not meant to overwhelm you. They arise naturally when the noise quiets. Jung believed that meaning is not something invented, but something discovered through honest engagement with life. As the Stoics understood, progress is not measured by the absence of struggle, but by the quality of your response to it. When worry no longer dictates that response, your life begins to feel steadier, clearer, and more your own. This is not an ending. It is a continuation, a deepening commitment to live from clarity rather than fear, to trust yourself enough to face reality without rehearsing disaster, to meet life as it is, with open eyes and a steady heart. And that is how things truly begin to work out, not because life becomes predictable, but because you become grounded. And you step away from this moment. Remember this: nothing outside of you needs to change for peace to begin. The moment you stop fighting your own mind, life stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a path you can walk with steadiness and trust. You don't need to have everything figured out. You only need to meet what's in front of you with clarity, courage, and calm. That is enough. It has always been enough. If this reflection stayed with you, don't let it end here. One of the videos on your screen continues this journey. Deeper insights, steadier grounding, and practical wisdom you can carry into your daily life. Let it guide you a little further. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing presence over panic and wisdom over noise. Thank you for being a part of Psychresto Mind.